Hi everyone and welcome back. Today I wanted to talk about my vaccinated child versus my unvaccinated. Um, so let's just get right into it. My 13-year-old, she had this was 13 years ago. They didn't do as many as they're doing today. But even like, she's not fully vaccinated because I started kind of learning about vaccines and stuff like that when she was around. I mean, not necessarily vaccines, but I started learning about GMOs, and I met someone who was an anti-vaxxer, and she kind of presented a good argument, and that was when my daughter was around like 10 months old. So after that, she wasn't vaccinated anymore. But, so I just kind of want to go through the vaccine she did have and what occurred after each vaccine. And I'm also going to include my two nephews in this who were both vaccinated, but we'll get to that. Okay, so my 13-year-old, 4 days after she was born, we had to go to the pediatrician. Now, let me give you I was like every other mother out there who's vaccinating their child. I thought, like everybody else, they tell you that vaccines are, we eradicated polio with vaccines and smallpox, and, vaccines are just the way you do things. You tend not to question it, when really, that's the most important thing you could do, is find out what is being injected into your child's body. But we just line up like the good sheep we are and, vaccinate our kids, because that's what our parents did, that's what their parents did, and it's just been completely programmed into us to believe that health is in an injection, when it couldn't be further from the truth. So I was just like everybody else, just going along with what we were supposed to do. A good parent vaccinates, because a good parent wants their child to be healthy. So she had the Hep B shot at that time, and everything was fine. She never spit up. Which I remember thinking, well, that's kind of weird. Every baby I know spits up, and she wasn't. She never spit up after a bottle. And then when she was 2 months, she got her, let's see, the DTaP, the oral polio, the Hib, and another booster of the hepatitis B, and the Prevnar. And after that is when she started spitting up. And within a week of her second month vaccines is the first time she developed an ear infection. And I wasn't really like putting anything together at that point. So she would get the ear infection, and then she would have to be on amoxicillin, which in turn would give her a yeast infection because the antibiotic takes the good bacteria that all women have down there, and it gets rid of all of the bacteria, good and bad. Then, okay, let's see, her 4-month shots, she had the 4-month shot, she had another booster of the DTaP, another booster of the Hib, another booster of the hepatitis B, and another booster of the Prevnar. And again, another ear infection, which, led to another yeast infection. Let's see what I've got written down here. Let's see. And then her 6-month shots, she received the 3rd booster of the DTaP, 3rd booster of the Hib, 3rd booster of the hepatitis B, and the 3rd booster of the Prevnar. And again, another ear infection, again, another yeast infection because of the antibiotics. Now, she broke out into a rash about the same time she developed the ear infection after her 6-month shots. And it was like, it was head to toe. And we took her to the emergency room and they told us she had hand, foot, and mouth disease. Now, hand, foot, and mouth disease is caused from fecal matter. And I'm not saying that babies, some of them, once in a while you have babies that will reach into their diaper, a dirty diaper, and, but the fact was that didn't happen. So I was like, well, how did she get hand, foot, and mouth disease? Like, that just really makes no sense to me. And among the group of parents who are against vaccines, a lot of them share the same story as we all do. Hand, foot, and mouth disease is so common, and really it should not be, because with it being caused from fecal matter, I don't know, it didn't make sense to me that, like I said, the hand, foot, and mouth disease. So actually, she did not receive any I thought it was 10 months I stopped vaccinating, but it was actually 6 months was her last vaccines. And because I met a girl who was telling me about, like, the GMO foods, and she didn't plan on vaccinating her baby, and she kind of started telling me this stuff about vaccines. And it wasn't that I necessarily, like, believed her 100%, but I was very open to listening to what she had to say. And so I stopped at that point, and I'm glad I did, because she never received her MMR, which among the anti-vaxxer community, a lot of babies, that MMR, like, seems to damage a lot of babies. That seems to be the one that I hear a lot of parents say that that's when they started noticing their child, they wouldn't make eye contact anymore. They would stop babbling. They would stop, maybe they were saying a few words and they stopped that. All their motor skills, like crawling, and maybe even some who are walking at that point, they just couldn't do it anymore. And, I really, truly feel that because of that girl I met, God brought her into my life for a reason, because maybe if my daughter received the MMR, maybe something very bad could have happened from that. Now my nephews, I have a 16-year-old nephew and a 13-year-old nephew. And my oldest nephew, after his very first shots, he got his shots in the hospital. And after that hepatitis B shot, he developed what they call eczema. And I have to wonder, like, if it's really eczema. That's something you'll also hear in the anti-vax community, is the overwhelming number of children who are getting eczema and bizarre rashes within days up to weeks after a round of vaccines. He was covered head to toe in this god-awful rash, and he was so pleasant throughout it. It just, it broke my heart, because they're itchy, and my sister went through hell trying to get the doctors to give her the right medication. Now, if it's eczema, there should be, okay, this medicine should work, but it wasn't working for him. And in fact, the one cream made it like 10 times worse, to where, how babies have they have no neck, so like, all that flub right there, all those rolls and stuff, his neck under here was completely raw. But that poor baby, he was just so pleasant through the whole thing, and it just broke our hearts. It really did. She asked for a referral to a dermatologist, and they finally got him the right, it was like an oil, and we would have to put it on him after every bath, and that did help, thank goodness. My nephew developed asthma, which everything I'm telling you here are listed side effects of vaccines. There is a reason these doctors do not give parents the actual insert. With every medication, think about it, every medication you get prescribed, they give you an insert, a pamphlet that tells you all the listed side effects and, warnings if you're on any other medications, and, all that stuff, the ingredients of the medication. But there's a reason doctors do not give you those inserts before they go ahead and inject your babies, because they don't want you to know. They don't want you to know what's all in there. These doctors get kickbacks for every injection. So, yeah, he developed asthma, which, again, listed side effect. And I just felt so bad for him. He was a very sickly baby. Happy, but he had things that could have been completely avoided. Now, my 13-year-old nephew, after his 2-month vaccines, he developed acid reflux. which is comparable with my daughter, who after her 2-month vaccines started spitting up. And that again is acid reflux. It's a very common thing amongst the anti-vaxxers, that they notice their child, developed. So let's see, I talked about the hand, foot, and mouth disease. My 13-year-old has allergies. I don't have allergies. Her father does. So, I'm not saying that her allergies were exactly caused by the vaccine. But when you look at the number of vaccines that have risen over the years, I think we're at like 72 now before babies are 2 years old. Compared to like when we were little, in the 80s when we were born, there was like maybe 12 or something like that. And I want to say allergies are a listed side effect. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. I believe they are. But if you look at the rise in the number of vaccines that they want to give, and then the rise in allergies, especially peanut allergies, milk protein allergies, all these crazy allergies that didn't exist, before vaccines were we'll say like 50s, 60s, nobody was allergic to peanuts. Nobody was allergic to milk. It's just bizarre. Now, this is just a side note. This may not have anything to do with the vaccines. But what I noticed is my 7-month-old is way more alert. My 13-year-old was very alert when she was born. Very, very alert. But as time went on, she became more docile. Not like, I don't know exactly how I want to explain that, but, she just became more relaxed, and I'm not exactly sure how I want to word that, but my 7-month-old has not had even a runny nose. It blows my mind, because with my 13-year-old, when she was an infant, we were constantly going to the emergency room at least once a month. She has a fever, she has that, she has that, she has a rash, she has that. It's just, and it's so weird that like now with my 7-month-old, I've never had to take her to the emergency room. I've never had to take her to the pediatrician. She's never had a cold. Nothing. Like, it's night and day difference having a truly healthy child. And I feel like they're changing what normal is. It's not normal for babies, kids in general, but it's not normal for children to be sickly. It's just not. Whether it's acid reflux, whether it's ear infections, like that's just not normal. It's an epidemic, and it's everywhere. And I was watching a video, and I won't give her name, but I was watching a vlog channel on YouTube, and the woman went and got herself and her 2 girls a flu shot. And within days of getting that flu shot, her oldest one, who I think is like 4, got the flu. Call it the flu, but she had the symptoms of the flu. And if you look up side effects of the flu vaccine, they'll give you all these side effects, when if you just look at the side effects, they're all symptoms that you get with the flu. You know, and I know people are like on their own journey of discovering, you know, and learning and waking up to certain things, researching. But that right there, like, should have told her, like, well, why did I even bother getting her a flu shot if she's just going to end up sick as a dog anyway, throwing up, diarrhea, completely lethargic, dehydrated. You know, it's just, it blows my mind. But yeah, my 7-month-old is so healthy, and I'm so blessed. I'm so grateful that God has led me to the information I need to know. Luckily, my 13-year-old is in excellent health. She does have allergies, but outside of that, she hasn't been to a doctor since she was 2 years old for a checkup. And then one time after that, when she was 7, she did have strep throat. That was it. She hasn't been to a doctor other than that. I mean, she's really healthy, and I think that's because I stopped vaccinating her at 6 months old. If I would have continued, who knows what would have happened. And I thank God, because I couldn't handle what a lot of these parents go through, where their child gets a vaccine, and sometimes within hours, sometimes with their days, they completely lose their child, whether by death or their child stops looking at them in the eye. They stop responding. They just go into their own little world, and you never get that child back. And it's sad. It's devastating. So I'm very blessed that none of that has happened. And, you know, God puts people in our lives for a reason, like that girl I met when my 13-year-old was just a baby. So that's my story on that. I hope this reaches people who are contemplating vaccines. I hope And even people who are like pro-vaxxers, if they come across this, I hope they really, have an open mind and can see, you know what I mean? Just research it. All the information is there. Maybe you don't want to look at it. Maybe you're scared, and you don't want to live with that guilt. But I'm telling you what, like, it's better than continuing to go through life ignorantly. Money corrupts, and there's a lot of money behind vaccines. So there's plenty of testimonies on YouTube of people who went through devastating events with their children because of vaccines. So the information is there. Your fellow human beings, I don't know when we have decided as a society that doctors are God, but they're not, and they don't know everything, and they're not even taught in medical school about the ingredients and the side effects in vaccines. All they're taught is the schedule of vaccines. That's it. So, like I said, I hope this helps somebody. I hope it reaches somebody who needs to hear it. And other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care and God bless.